it feels like marketing is still playing catch up with that,
Mm.
and still thinking they can get away with the same low level investment content specifically tied to lead gen, whether it's through gated assets or capturing email or some other way, rather than thinking through content as a way to build a relationship asynchronously with your audience and your customers.
Yeah.
The Blowing Up Brands podcast is a running conversation covering brand strategy, demand gen, DEI, unconventional ideas, and unforgettable stories with a whole range of experts, influencers, and other interesting and entertaining characters. Enjoy.
Hey, Brooklyn, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about you doing? How are you doing?
Yeah.
It's evening over here, so
Yes. Yeah. We're in different parts of the world. I'm doing okay, well enough. We've chatted previously, so you know how terribly my day is actually going. But for
yeah.
purposes of showbiz, like, yes, I'm doing great. Things are
You gotta
not.
be real. You gotta be real.
Yeah, that's not usually an issue of mine. Yeah, I tend to be real
Fair
to a
enough.
detriment. But yeah, having my plans rearranged today, but still managing to be here for this. And it's taken us a few loops on this. We've taken turns, going back and forth. So I'm glad that we finally got a chance to get on the same page and have a chat.
Yeah, same here. Bringing it full circle from when was the last time? That could have been a year ago or
Yeah, I think
3 years
a couple of
ago.
years ago, maybe. Yeah, somewhere
Yeah,
a year and
in
a
the
half
middle.
range. Yeah, you weren't quite doing what you were doing, what you're doing at the moment. You were like kind of
Right.
working your way there. And so, though, yes, you were also in a different country than you're sitting in currently at the moment. So that's a good update. And yeah, and we had beers built in, and I don't do that anymore. So we figured we should probably do a different themed podcast. And
Yeah,
so
like it.
here we are.
Neither do I, so good fit.
Oh, nice, excellent. So we both gave that up too. So yeah, so here we are. This will be the inaugural episode of Blowing
Oh,
Up Brands. Yeah, you're number
no
one.
pressure. No
Yeah,
pressure.
yeah. We better fucking do this thing right. Because I don't do editing, so it's got to go really well all the way through. But yeah, this conversation, this whole pod, right, is about different things that we're bringing to the table that blow up myths about what it takes to build brands. You and I work a lot in the world of content, right? So that'll be our conversation today. Is kind of like what do we do today in today's modern marketing and brand building world to actually set ourselves apart, and what can other people do, and maybe blow up some of those myths along the way that might be hanging around in content, maybe some of those old ones, those 2010 kind of HubSpot content
Mm.
myths, and maybe some of those new ones about what AI is going to do.
Uh-oh. Can we get into that, huh?
Yeah, I think we have enough to blow up within the time that we have allotted. So why don't we just kind of like, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, so I'm Brooklyn. I'm one of three co-founders of Beam Content. We focus on long form content and thought leadership for B2B tech brands. So we're big fans of, we call it expert led content, where we start with an interview with the product manager, a data engineer, a CFO, the CEO, just to get firsthand knowledge and then turn that into content for our clients. Yeah, we've been doing it for a couple of years now, and we have a team of five full time, and then there's about 18 of us between writers and editors and designers or VA. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And when we last chatted, you had a large, a gig, and then you were doing a lot of side gigs, freelance, had
Mhm.
kind of a setup that seemed like, was maybe heading towards what Beam has become. And you are, you do at least some version yourself of founder-led content, right? At least in like the short form stuff. Obviously, y'all are generating long form things for yourself, but we know each other originally from LinkedIn. So, what's your kind of synopsis of what put you on the path from working for other people to kind of creating your own thing and then having to embody what it is that you do for other people?
Yeah, good question. Because I actually did things backwards. I started out of college as a freelancer for about 6+ years. Then jumped into full-time work for a couple of years just because I had never had a full-time job before, like with a 401k and a boss that I report up into and all of that. I just figured I had a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. So I was there for a couple of years and then jumped back out on my own. My wife and I and our co-founder Sam started Beam together out of that, and then here we are. So that transition was more about trying both self-employment and a full-time gig and realizing I like the self-employment better. Which is not a value statement on either. It seemed a better fit for me and for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I've done some of both. Currently, I'm in the full-time gig version, which has its perks. I don't have to manage my own taxes and all that kind of stuff. There's certain administrative things that it turns out are not my strength, and I'm quite averse to. So it's been nice. It's been nice the last few years to avoid some of that without having to like build my own framework around it. But yeah, there was certainly a certain flexibility and agility. And I know that you're kind of literally all over the place, right? As far as like travel and going different places and stuff. And I know that remote makes that possible for people in a lot of circumstances, but I've not, some of the larger companies are always attempting to move people out of remote, and kind of go into a model that makes sense for their own management styles, makes sense for commercial real estate, makes sense for a lot of other entities, but obviously you have full freedom to kind of like roam on your own. How much do you think that that's played into your decisions to take this into your own thing?
Oh, that's been a big part of it. That and beyond. I mean, I've said this before, and it, hopefully it doesn't sound like negative, but it's not like B2B marketing is some big passion. It's it's interesting and it's fun, and I'm very grateful for our team and for our clients. But like we're building this business as a means to an end.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's, I don't want to be coy about that. So yeah, it's totally a big part of it is we wanted flexibility with our time. We wanted flexibility with our finances. We want to put us in a good spot in the next decade rather than a 35-year time horizon to typical retirement, So
yeah.
Is that getting at your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's a different path, right? It's a different kind of path than the corporate path, if we just want to kind of call it that, would allow for. And usually has to be the corporate path for that kind of structure, because the small businesses, it's difficult to find that and sustain it as well. All right. So in the world of content, y'all specialize in B2B content, in expert-led, and in some cases founder-led. Sometimes those are the same thing, right? Sometimes not. Founder-led content.
True.
And the tag is kind of like making it not so boring, right? The B2B content is boring as fuck, which most of us can see immediately. It doesn't take much scrolling on LinkedIn to realize, A, I haven't even noticed that there are ads on LinkedIn because it's so blends in and just everything looks like everything that it just goes right by, which is an
Yeah.
interesting thing when you're trying to do lead gen and, hey, download my whatever, and it just fucking goes by because it looks like it was branded for LinkedIn because it's blue and it's whatever, and it looks like everything else looks like. So what, what do you think is the real simple answer, right? Like what's your biggest pet peeve about how people are largely currently doing B2B content?
Mm. I think so I'm the caveat here is I'm not a performance marketer or demand gen marketer, but I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with a lot of them, right? And been the
Mm-hmm.
bridge between them and product marketing and sales and all that. I think a pet peeve is that sales has kind of woken up and smelled the coffee that they can't just spray and pray anymore and blast out email lists. Like they have to get really intentional and really personal, play the long game, for lack of a better word, make those investments, time and relationship investments with people, especially when you're selling, mid-market on up to
Mm-hmm.
enterprise and to the C-suite or director level, right?
Yeah.
Not a $20 a month self-serve tool.
Mm-hmm.
And sales has made that transition. Like that's been what it's been all about the last 3 or 4 years, right? It feels like marketing is still playing catch up with that, and still thinking they can get away with the same low level investment content specifically tied to lead gen, whether it's through gated assets or capturing email or some other way, rather than thinking through content as a way to build a relationship asynchronously with your audience and your customers.
Yeah. Which obviously when we have these conversations about pet peeves and the biggest problems, like luckily here we are to solve them, right? So the pet peeve is also what we have businesses around. And yeah, I want to throw in that because I know that my agency, what y'all are doing, we're serving very different markets. And so there's no real, but there are correlations, right? So we focus on smaller businesses, often regional businesses, but not always who aren't necessarily going to produce or invest in the same level of kind of things that y'all are creating for like the mid-market and up enterprise, but have the same problem and have the same assumptions, like where the salespeople know that, hell, even at a local level, right? How has it always been done? Well, you go to these things and you build relationships and people start trusting what it is you have to say. And of course they know, like, and trust you. All those personal aspects are there. And then at some point, it's not because you're beating them to death. It's because you've got something that they actually need, right? Like some need arises and you become the person to talk to, not because you're annoying the shit out of them or spraying bullshit, but because that's what makes sense for them at a time. And marketing departments don't do that.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. And just treating content, I don't know, it's like still become commoditized, but because it's somehow synonymous with SEO content for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's associating content as, just the fluff that you need to drive demand gen, when the content can connect the dots between a lot more.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, and even I don't know, demand gen, the way I think about it, right, would still require actually good, compelling content because
Yeah.
people SEO finding their way to you and then filling out something like that's lead gen.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
I know
just because the path that can, oh, sorry.
what's that?
Especially just with a higher, not to put a value statement, but like higher tier
Yeah.
prospect where it's, C-suite at mid-market or, VPs at enterprise level companies.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just throw an article up, have a, interstitial come up when they go to close out, but compares products and gives a free, 1 month free trial offer and expect conversion. Like you have to educate and build that relationship over time.
Yeah. Yes. And And obviously in B2B also speak to some different people as part of that process, because in your market, like the CEO is not the one who's hunting out those initial solutions. So the people
Right.
who are finding through search and finding through those kind of mechanized ways are going to have certain options that either good content is going to validate and good brand is going to validate, or not. I know that we have internally, even at our agency, right? There's some, I think, healthy tension between the folks who do SEO, right? And who are building for that. And it's just like, all right, brand strategy, like let's lay out a website. And I'm I'm running hard from the messaging we've created and the brand and the persona and who it is we're trying to talk to. And other people are coming at it from, okay, well, here's keyword and here's how we build this according to SEO. Here's what we think GA4 will think about all this. And we've got to like blend those things, because that does have an importance for certain functions. But yeah, there's a constant kind of going back and forth, and that the clients, for us, there's a reason they hire agencies, and it's because unless they have really good marketing people in place, they know the term SEO, right? They know the term content or whatever. They know the 5 years ago pre-pandemic, right? All these kind of these rules. And it's just like, well, can we get that? Can we, here's the keywords to go for. Here's this. Let's put on an event. Let's do some white papers and, just kind of retread, fill it with AI, use ChatGPT. It's just buzzwords coming out. And so it's easy to pitch that stuff to them, but I don't think it fucking works.
Yeah. It doesn't. That's a big reason why we started what we started. And don't get me started on AI. The like full disclosure, the hard part of this year has been figuring out the best way to talk about this stuff without sounding totally self-serving.
Yes.
Like, of course, I'm going to be the agency owner saying, we're different. Like all this other content, like, sure, you could get ChatGPT to do it for free, but that's dumb and that's not going to work. And just like puts me in this position of just sounding like the naysayer.
Yeah.
But like, I refer our potential clients to other people all the time if we're not a good fit. So I want to think of being honest, and B, a lot of it is crap. Like some SEO agencies just do absolute shit work for their clients, get no results, and they're just pumping out volume. Like ChatGPT, I'm sorry, it is not anywhere close where it needs to be to replace a solid writer trying to write for a educated, high up on the ladder audience.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out strong stance versus the balanced stance.
Yeah, well, I think that makes sense since nobody trusts marketers, right? So, not coming across as being a pure shill for yourself is difficult. I know for us, because we don't do a ton right now of just pure like, in-house, we're going to do your content generate, especially if it's writing heavy. We don't have writers in-house. I mean, we have people that can write. We can get the website done. I can write. Our brand managers can write, but we're not signing up for long form content gigs because that's just not our thing. We have partners to do specific things that they're really good at. So one of the balances I find is, unless you don't think strategy is worthwhile, then you probably shouldn't talk to us for any reason, right? If you don't see any value in brand or in doing quality content at some point, and you just want to run, keyword shit and just spray the world and do all those kind of things, then it's not a fit. But otherwise, what we do is the strategy first. And sometimes, if you're a fucking e-com business, we have clients who are e-com, then we bring a partner in. And it's just like, no, I get it. Like SEO and ads and all that kind of stuff is very important, right? And mid-level content, how do you make the sausage recipe, because you're selling the parts to do that, right? Like whatever that is, like, cool. You don't need 10 fucking grand for that blog post. But for some folks, you do. and then we have to bring in partners and then deal with the cost pushback and those kinds of things. And some people don't want strategy, right? They just want a pair of hands, and that's how we know personally that here's a bunch of people you can go to depending on what you need hands for. If it's not design or development, then we're probably not a fit. But one of the things I think that maybe you have is, like I said earlier, you're doing some forms of what you're saying other people also should be doing, right? So you've got maybe through your website there's some content. There's the LinkedIn version and the social media version of founder-led content. Obviously, social's playful in a way that's it's not always expert, but I think, in my opinion, your blend of having fun with the actual topics that you're talking about is the exact, like, what the fuck else would you be doing on social except for boring everybody to death, which is standard LinkedIn practice, right? But that's one of the things I know that we've struggled with, and a lot of people, experts on LinkedIn, talk about this, but like the Walkers of the world. But again, speaking of folks who are like doing a very specific thing, built it a very specific way, and it really does not quite apply that exact same way to other things, like shit. You're talking to marketers. You're talking to marketers in a marketing space. Like, it doesn't quite work that way for everybody. What, in the world of getting folks, founders, experts, let's say founders who are experts, right? The person leading the company does know what the hell they're talking about. We know, especially if it's like a tech company, for example, ChatGPT is pointless because it stopped learning 2021, right? I mean, it's 2 years behind at best. So if there's anything changing in your field, takes you nowhere unless you're so bad at writing that you can't generate a certain tone on your own. And you ask it to write it like a movie script, right? So for people who can rely even less on AI, and maybe they've got some good long form stuff, right? Like, let's say you're doing something that, so they've got great long form shit. But the way to start getting that in front of people, right, is to do some kind of individual presence on LinkedIn. What would you recommend for folks who have the normal barriers to doing that, right? The normal, like, I don't know why, I'm not sure if I'm the right person. I don't have the time. Like, have you found something that's a good mix for yourself or for people you're working with that kind of gets them over that hurdle?
Well, the good news is I've never met a technical founder who had any shortage of something to say. So the issue has never been like, oh yeah, like I know it's important, but I'm not really sure what I'd say. Never been an issue, not once. It's always like, oh yeah, I got tons of great stuff to say. I don't have time for it.
Yes.
Or they're not natural writers.
Yeah.
Or combo. So time, easy solve, great. We'll interview for you for an hour per month, and we'll turn that into posts for you, right? Not strong writers, it can be a little bit more coachy, like, we did this because of X, Y, and Z. If you want to take this prompt, and it's just kind of walking them through it. If the writing confidence isn't there, or honestly, sometimes trying to gently guide them through it. If the writing confidence is there, but the writing quality is not.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe
there's a delicate process.
A different way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Those are always really fun projects to work on because it's either figuring out the brand voice or what the CEO or CFO or co-founder, wants to talk about and emphasize, and how they come across.
And in generating content, any form, right? Like you just mentioned, brand voice. We're big into that over here. That you should not have ours necessarily, or mine for sure. But you should figure out what it is and communicate it. So I know how we pitch that. Like, what would you say? Like, what is the importance of actually sorting out brand voice and maybe personal voice distinct from that, but overlapping with that? And I think probably most importantly, like, what are the cons of not doing it?
This is probably a better question for my co-founder, Sam, because she focuses on this a lot with founders. I'm trying to channel my inner Sam here. I think this might seem counterintuitive, but with the brand account and brand voice, we tend to try to have like more fun with it. Like that's where we'll post the memes or the, funny captions and, the text post with emojis and the polls and just more of the fun stuff on the brand page, just because it helps it stand out that it's not just PR or like a product announcement or something.
Company news.
It'll be like employee takeovers, where it's their photo and a little mini post from them. On the founder page, the voice itself is just kind of comes out over the first couple of months of writing with them. Like they'll have some pretty specific feedback about how things sound, and that helps sort things out. You're not going to get it exactly right the first go around as we batch things. But in general, it's not even so much voice, but like I think it just helps for anybody in, like, if you're a co-founder or CEO trying to do a bit more of the founder-led approach. I think just leaning on experience more than anything. Like make every post a story, and I think it's going to stand out. About your first sales hire, or what raising funding looked like, or how you had to go through your first round of layoffs and how that impacted it. But just making it really personal.
Yeah,
it helps.
And if that helps, what do you think is most missing, right? Like what are folks missing out on by not doing those kinds of things? Because especially the personal story, I get pushback on that a lot. Like it's LinkedIn though, right? This is a professional, even though, and what you're talking about is business specific. And then we'll go a little further with like, you can have, let's say you have 4 things to talk about, right? One of them can be, especially if it's, you're an athlete or you're something. I mean, people love the family shit, like so much the whole, like this, my 5-year-old said this amazing thing, because that sounds like bullshit at this point. But like, what do you think that is that people are most missing out on by resisting personalizing and telling a story?
I think they're missing out on treating, hopefully this doesn't sound like too blasé, or what's the right word? Anyway, cheesy, something. I think they're missing out on treating LinkedIn as what it was supposed to be, as a networking site, not a Twitter where it's about like number of followers. I know I get the reach and the algorithm, and I get that it is to a point today, but it's still for networking. And I think by incorporating the personal, you're just opening the door to just some great conversations. This is why I said, I hope it doesn't sound cheesy, but honestly, like some of the best messages I've gotten are like in response to something that was something more in my personal experience. And that opened the door to an ongoing conversation in the DMs, and sometimes over Zoom. If you're just doing like top 10 ways to do XYZ and it's just for reach, like maybe you'll get a lot of reactions, but you're not going to get that much depth to your interactions.
You have all the likes and the this. I already agree with this. This is incredible.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. I learned that commenting on this is just as good as sharing my own posts. So yes. All right. So penultimate question here, I guess, is if you had one thing, to say to the conflicted owners, regardless of the size of what they're doing, and it could be LinkedIn, generating longer form content, any kind of content, right? So the kind of person who's on the fence, who has people in the ear about SEO and the efficiency of AI and all those kinds of things. And then, some other folks, whether it's people like us in the feed or, the brand storyteller on staff or whatever it is, they're on the fence about doing well thought out, creative, branded content. Does it make sense for them? What's the message? Without having to worry about you pitching yourself, because that's kind of what I'm asking for. I mean, that's going to be inherent in this one, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking through currently here.
Yeah.
The answer is you probably, as time goes on and you grow, you're going to need all of it. You're going to need SEO. You're going to need branded content. You're going to need social content.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need sales enablement content. You're going to need case studies. You're going to list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
If you grow into a 1,000-person company, billion revenue ARR plus, you're going to need all that. The question is, what do you need in the next 2 months and the next year to lay the best foundation? And that depends on who your audience is, what your product does, what your price point is, all these different factors to figure out what's going to have the biggest impact for you, the short term, and lay the best foundation long term. Sometimes that is SEO, especially if you're more of a self-serve, lower price point product. Sometimes it's going all in on sales enablement and working more directly with product and sales, that kind of collateral. And then sometimes it's branded content and stuff, the kind of stuff you can repurpose on social, get earned media with, run partnerships with. So yeah, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
It depends. Do I sound like a marketer or what?
It depends. Yeah, no, that's that's the honest answer, right? You balanced, you were worrying about I'm going to give the obvious answer for you should do what we sell. And you didn't do that. And I've always said the answer is always it depends. But if we need a quote, here.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So, if you want my hot take,
yeah, we do need quotes for social. So yeah, there's a clip. There's a clip for us. Okay, good. So anything else? And let's just assume we're not talking e-com or the $10 a month subscription product, right? But somewhere between, in our world, it tends to be professional services, moving into what could be SaaS at a higher level, where you actually have to think about the investment. Something that's going to cost people thousands of dollars, cost another business thousands of dollars to work with you. Is there anything else, maybe on the foundation of what the last answer was, that you would recommend for in that mix, right? In the mix of all the things they need to consider short-term and long-term, even if branded content, even the stuff that we're going to want to sell isn't the 90% of the mix, right? How do you lay the foundation, even if it's maybe a smaller part of the ratio? Where do you start?
I mean, I know you mentioned and asked about founder-led content earlier. I think that's a great place to start. I mean, if you don't have the time, that's a separate conversation that we can have, and there's other freelancers that do similar stuff. But I think by taking the time with a vendor or on your own to develop your own voice, not just on social, but start pitching yourself for earned media, look at partnership opportunities. You grow your brand alongside your brand's brand, it's just going to open up a lot more opportunities down the line for not just sales, but customer collaborations, partnerships with other platforms or resellers, events, invitations, community. It'll just open things up. So I think it's that's true of content as a whole, but it's a good place to start if you're early days as a founder.
Nice. Full circle. Okay, good. Well, here's the part where if you do want to make any kind of a shameless pitch, you can. And at the very least, tell people where to look to find you besides this.
Yeah. No real shameless pitch here. I think I've made my stances on the content pretty clear. So if any of that resonates, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat content.
Mhm.
Even if it's not working with us, it can connect you with our network of freelancers or other agencies. Like you said too, you have partners you work with for certain
Mhm.
things. Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, message me there, or you can email me at brooklyn@beamcontent.co.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and from across the world and to get yourself set up and have a chat. And it's nice to reconnect to find out we both dropped the beer. So still working on
Yeah,
biz dev, but but no brews except for the coffee. I guess for me, cold brew is the only thing that's
yeah.
new.
I got coffee here, so I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So we could adapt. But yeah, thanks. I appreciate taking the time and moving this around to have it work. And looking forward to seeing how Beam grows and develops.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool.
Thanks for checking out Blowing Up Brands, brought to you by Renoun Creative. If you dig what we're putting out, follow us on YouTube and your favorite pod platform, and at renowncreative.com. See you soon.